When the World Wide Web was created in 1989, it changed the way billions of people accessed information. But 30 years on, the web's inventor, Tim Berners-Lee, says he doesn't always like what he sees. Privacy violations, state-sponsored hacking, hate speech, misinformation and online harassment are among the ills of his creation.
We have to be careful. We need to constantly be analysing the web and how people interact on it. Because what I'm worried about is that there should be a large-scale emergent phenomenon. That there should be sort of like the financial system works fine and then one day it crashes. One of the concerns is that could happen on the web socially.
Speaking at the celebration event at Cern, where he first came up with the idea for a system for scientists to share information, Berners-Lee has appealed to internet users to take complete control of their data. In 1989, the world's largest physics laboratory, Cern, was a hive for ideas and information. So Tim Berners-Lee had a vision for a unified structure for this information, linking it across different computers. By 1991, this vision became the World Wide Web. With more than 50% of the world's population online, questions about cybersecurity and moves towards encryption are more relevant than ever.
When we see today the predominance of beliefs over knowledge, of digital harassment, fake news, the digital frenzy of the masses, which is so dangerous for democracy, we wonder if we haven't actually created a monster which is out of control.
Berners-Lee has launched his own campaign to save the web. Last year, he called for a new contract for the web based on access for all and the fundamental right to privacy. Lyubova, TRT World, Geneva.
And for more insight, Mark Skilton joins me from Warwick in England. He's a professor of practice in information systems and management at the Warwick Business School. Thank you for joining us here on Money Talks. It is certainly no exaggeration to say the World Wide Web changed humanity. The internet has changed our lives in ways we can't imagine, but it has gotten a lot of criticism lately, even from its own founder, for facilitating the spread of hate and privacy issues. Do you think that's warranted?
Well, it's a bit too late. I mean, it's a bit like Pandora's jar has been opened. We can't put the genie back into the bottle because it's really out there. The whole nature of the internet is what's known as the internet of the network of networks, as your report rightly described. Technically, it was actually invented probably even earlier, about 50 years ago in the US Department of Defense and ARPANET that created the early foundations of TCP for technically literate people. That was really one of the foundations of the protocol that the internet was based. You're absolutely right. 30 years ago, Tim Berners-Lee wrote the first hypertext standard. And I think really to summarize from a technical point of view, given that we can't put Pandora back in the jar, we need to think about new ways of privacy and regulation going forward. And I think maybe there's some alteration in standards, new types of regulation, because I think there's a huge amount of what's known as a dual technology problem. It has a lot of power for good. It also has a lot of power for bad things, which is really the balancing act we've got to get right going forward.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible or even right to police the internet? For example, some countries like China block many Western websites and social media like Facebook and Twitter and even Google in order to restrict the information that people have access to. Is that the future of the internet?
Well, the UN have made the internet a human right, for example. And you and I live in Western economies, let's say. We can look at the Eastern economies and we can be judgmental about their own culture bases. And this is something I have regularly, how to balance what is right for your own personal belief system and who actually decides, because what is one kind of rule for one person might be different for another. And that's the power of the internet. It is a mirror, a reflection of our own humanity, if you will. Mm-hmm. But equally, we have cyberbullying, we have the dark web, we have drugs, we all have these really bad side, almost like the bad side of humanity amplified by the technology. So I don't think we can turn it off. I think we've just got to think of new governance, as I've done some research on this area myself and looking at the UK government and European government, looking at California, they wanted to put in privacy, GDPR, all these sort of things are part of taming the beast that's come out and is enriching our lives in so many ways, but also comes with some downsides as well, as Tim Berners-Lee points out.
Yeah, certainly some bad with the good there. How has the internet changed since it first came online in these last 30 years? What major milestones have we seen since we were first on dial-up 30 years ago?
Yes, I noticed a film recently. I think it was the one of the super movie films showed us back in the 1980s we had to wait to dial into the thing and the speed. So really the thing that's rapidly, even what we're doing right now, talking to one another over the internet, is really the level of communication has just been phenomenal. Speed, the bandwidth, we're using video on demand. That is such a powerful thing. I know from students and my own experiences, you can connect with people who are on the other side of the earth and you can see them, you can interact with them. And so that's been a big step change in our communication and entertainment and value system. But I think on the downside, we've also seen lots of problems with democracy, with fake news, with cyber attacks, which is now using artificial intelligence. But equally, artificial intelligence has the ability to revolutionize medicine, revolutionize the online training, access to education to many people. And in the developing countries that don't have access to the internet, that needs to be put right, and to give access to more freedom of speech. And so there's lots of positives and negatives. And I think really it's a reflection of a modern 21st century economy, modern society going forward. We've got some big existential problems with climate change. We've got problems of the population growth, problems of communication and how we govern that. But I think these technologies harnessed properly can create jobs, can create new capabilities, can drive the future, but it's not something that's going to happen. We've got to really have this conversation and debate this and work out how we can best manage the internet going forward for what we want it to do rather than what we don't want it to do.
All right, absolutely. It certainly has changed our lives. Mark Skilton, thank you so much for joining us here today on Money Talks.